Welcome to Milk Tea Designs. Today, I'll show you how to make this heart-shaped bookmark for Valentine's Day. This one is made with small, fine craft thread. You can find this at lots of craft stores. It's often used to make friendship bracelets and for embroidery. It's very fine thread. And it was made with another very small crochet hook. The size of this hook is 1/2.75 millimeters. But this is pretty tedious sizing, so today I'll show you with some slightly bigger thread. Here is some cotton yarn from Hobby, and a very pastel purple and a slightly darker purple. This yarn is super fine fingering weight yarn, still much bigger than the craft thread, so our needle size will be 3.0 millimeters. You should also have some scissors, and you also may use darning needle, or you may just use your crochet hook to sew in the ends. This heart is composed of two different sized hearts, a slightly larger one, slightly smaller one. It is also composed of a tassel at the end. To start, I'll show you how to make the slightly larger heart. To begin, make a slip stitch. Chain 6. Next, we're going to crochet our next stitches in the 4th chain from the hook. I'll show you where that is. That's the 1st chain, 2nd chain, 3rd chain, 4th chain. So this is the 4th chain, and then you can see that you'll have two chain stitches left after that. 1, 2. So we're going to make our next stitches in that 4th chain from the hook. Those stitches will be 4 treble crochets. So yarn over, insert hook into 4th chain from hook, yarn over, pull yarn through, yarn over, go through 2 loops, yarn over, go through next 2 loops, yarn over, go through last 2 loops, and that's a treble crochet. Now that we've made 1, we need to make 3 more in that same chain stitch. Right, we have 4 treble crochets in that 1 chain stitch. We have 2 chain stitches left, and into the next chain stitch, we are going to make 2 double crochets. That's just yarn over, insert hook into next chain stitch, yarn over, pull the yarn through, yarn over, go through 2 loops, yarn over, go through last 2 loops. That's 1 double crochet. We're going to do another one in the same stitch. Now you have 2 double crochets, and you've got 1 chain stitch left here. In that last chain stitch, we're going to perform 2 single crochets. So insert your hook into that chain stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. That's 1 single crochet. Now we're going to do another one. Alright, we have half of our heart done now. It should look kind of like this. Now we're going to chain 2. And we're going to perform 2 more single crochets into the same chain stitch that we did the other single crochets. So 1, 2. Now we're going to do 2 double crochets into the next stitch, the same stitch we did the other double crochets in. Now we're going to do 4 treble crochets again and into the same chain stitch that all the other 4 treble crochets are in. After 4 treble crochets, you're gonna chain 2 and slip stitch into the same stitch that all of the treble crochets are in. Now we're gonna slip stitch down the middle of the heart. So we're gonna make a slip stitch in the stitch that we made the double crochets in, slip stitch that we made the single crochets in, then finally one more slip stitch between the, well, under the chain 2 we made between the single crochets. Then you'll cut your yarn and just pull it up. Cool. We'll sew those ends in later. Next up, we'll be making this slightly smaller heart. It's this one on this finished heart here. It's very similar to the last one we made. So I'll try to go a little faster here. Make your slip stitch, then chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once you've done that, form 2 treble crochets in the 4th chain from your hook. Next, perform 2 double crochets in that same chain. Next, form 2 single crochets in the last chain. You've got half a heart done. Chain 2. Do 2 single crochets in that same chain. Then do 2 double crochets in the next chain. And do 2 treble crochets in that same chain. Chain 2. Slip stitch in that same stitch. Slip stitch in the stitch that you did the single crochets in. And then slip stitch underneath the chain 2 you made between the single crochets. And then cut your yarn. And pass it off. Go through, pull it. And that's your little heart. You can see that it's just a tad smaller than your big heart. Now we need to weave in these ends. You want to get this end sticking out here on the wrong side, so just you can use a gardening needle if you like, but it's not really worth it for me because it's such a short thing to weave in. But I stick my hook into the bottom of the heart under the chain 2 space, and I pull that in through to get it onto the wrong side. Flip your heart over. Here's the wrong side. And then got a lot of just jam your hook into stitches you can get it in. Kind of tedious. Just do that, and then your yarn, pull through all those. Maybe go back to make it extra secure. And yeah, once you're satisfied with how much you've weaved in, you'll just cut it, and that's weaving in the ends. Once you have your 2 large hearts, 2 small hearts with the ends sewn in, you're going to want to make your tassel. Personally, I like to do more of the darker yarn in the tassel than the lighter yarn. So right here, I have lined up the dark yarn, and this is 4 strands. These are all 3 things of 4 strands that are equal length. I like to use just some kind of card. You could use cardboard to make the equal strands. So now I'm gonna get the lighter colored yarn strands. Just wrap it around. You only need 4. This is not a super bulky tassel. And then just slide that off. Cut both ends of it. And there's the lighter color one. So now I'll show you how to make the tassel. You're gonna wanna fold this in half, like that. And then fold another one in half over it. And then you're gonna do the same thing with the other one. This is definitely a little bit tedious, especially with how short I cut the yarn. If you would like it to be less tedious, then cut longer lengths of yarn. Here we go. Okay, you want to line it up kind of like this, and you basically want to put this through this hole, and then this through this hole. If you've gotten everything through, it should look like this, and then you're basically just gonna pull on it and tighten it up. Once it's tightened up, it should look like this, and it's not finished, but we're gonna leave it like this for now so that it's easier to attach to our bookmark. It's done. It's time to assemble it. We're gonna start at the bottom of this small heart, which will be the bottom. I'm gonna be using the darker purple. You take your darker yarn and make a slip stitch. Leave a long enough tail for when we're attaching the tassel. So here's your slip stitch. I'm gonna chain 11. Really, you can chain as long or short as you like, just however long you want the end to be, however long you want the tassel to hang. So we're gonna start with our smaller heart, and if you remember earlier at the bottom, in that last chain, you did 2 single crochets, and then you chained 2. So when we join this, we want to slip stitch into that second chain we made at the bottom of the heart. And we want to do it in the back loop only. Just attaching with the slip stitch. Now we want to slip stitch into the back loops of the next 2 single crochet stitches. Then slip stitch into the back loops of both of the double crochets. In the treble crochet, make a single crochet into the back loop. The next treble crochet, make 2 single crochets. Now we've got what were chain stitches. And the next one, do a single crochet, and then do a slip stitch. And now we're at where the next stitch was. This slip stitch here that we made into that first chain with all the treble crochets. So we are going to do a slip stitch in there, and we're going to go in from this side closest to our hook. So we're going to go in underneath that and into the chain. This is what it looks like on the back. And do a slip stitch there. Okay. Now do a chain 4. And now we want to attach the bigger heart. which is going to be very similar to smaller one. Slip stitch into that second chain at the bottom of the heart. Remember to stay working in the back loops only. Now slip stitch into those 2 single crochets. Slip stitch into the 2 double crochets. Slip stitch into the next treble crochet. Do a single crochet into the next treble crochet. Do 2 single crochets into the next one. Do 1 single crochet into the next. And do slip stitch, slip stitch. Yeah. Then we're gonna slip stitch into this funny stitch like we did in the last heart. And then you'll do a chain 4, and you'll attach the next tiny heart. And then you'll do another chain 4 and attach the last big heart. We've basically slip stitched up the side of all of these hearts, and now you should be at the top of this one. From here, you should be able to make out these 4 treble crochet stitches. This is the top of the first treble crochet you made, and then here's the chain stitch. And there should be another chain stitch below that right here. This is the chain stitch that we're going to make our next stitch into. Also, continue working into the back loops. So slip stitch into that chain stitch, and slip stitch into the next chain stitch. Single crochet into the first treble stitch. 2 single crochets into the next treble stitch. 1 single crochet into the next treble stitch. Slip stitch into the next treble stitch. And then slip stitch in the next 2 double crochet stitches. Slip stitch into the next single crochet stitches. Slip stitch into that chain space. And now we've single crocheted, we've got our border around this top part. Now we've made 4 chains between our hearts. So but we're not gonna slip stitch into that chain yet. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 chains, and then we have the first slip stitch we made, and we want to slip stitch into that. And then we want to slip stitch down those 4 chains. Now we've arrived at a little heart. So just like with the big heart, you want to find that first treble crochet and then count 1 chain, 2 chains, and slip stitch into that chain. Crochet into the next chain. Make 2 single crochets. Make 1 single crochet and slip stitch down the heart. Slip stitch into that first slip stitch, and then you've now gone around a big heart and a little heart, and you'll continue down in this fashion. Once you get all the way to the bottom, you'll slip stitch down that chain 11 down here. After slip stitching down the bottom of this chain, you're gonna cut your yarn, leaving a decent sized tail, about the same as you left at the very beginning when you started. Then just yarn over, pull that through, and tighten it up. And now we're gonna attach the tassel. So to attach it, we're gonna start with putting it on top of one of our loose ends, the other loose end on top. And it should look kind of like this. We're just gonna make one knot. Then we wanna put our two loose ends underneath the tassel and tie it on the underside. So just gonna flip that over. Here's our loose ends, and we're gonna tie a knot and tie it another knot. Another one. Make it tight. And maybe another one, just for good measure here, and this knot's going to be hidden anyways, so it doesn't matter that it looks bulky, which is why I like attaching it this way. Alright, now that our tassel's attached, let's actually finish making the tassel. So to do that, you're going to need a long piece of this darker color, or lighter one, your choice. Snip that off. And you've probably seen this before in other videos, but you really just tie one knot and tighten it. And scoot it up. It can be a little tassels can be a little bit tedious in my opinion, but this method really isn't that bad, and it makes your bookmark much cuter in my opinion. So then you're gonna wrap this around a bunch of times, tie a bunch of knots. I will do that. Okay, I've wrapped it around a few times. Now our final one, you want to tie a few knots and tie them really tight. So that's what I'm doing now. Alright. Next, you just want to trim your tassel to make it look nice and even. So I'll trim it about right here. Alright, now your bookmark is done. You can see this one, it's a little bit bigger than this one, but it still works. This is a pretty small journal, and I think it's quite a good size, perfect size, really. I think these are both good sizes. The larger yarn is a lot less tedious, in my opinion, and you could even go bigger with this yarn and maybe just do 2 or 3 hearts. This is my first crochet tutorial, so I'm open to any kind of feedback. Thank you for watching.